Okay, so good morning, everybody. Thomas asked this morning regarding the fold-over note card, I think for the firefighter assignment. But the reason I'm calling your attention to it now is 2 assignments from now, you're going to create a fold-over note card again. And part of your credit for it is setting up the document properly, so we may as well just take a look at how to do that right now. So I noticed in InDesign as I was looking at this, it didn't have inches selected, but for some reason the preferences are fine. So when you set up a new document as a fold-over note card, most greeting cards, you might want to look up here and not miss this because I'm kind of introducing an assignment, 2 assignments from now, but it applies to the firefighter assignment, which I demoed. When you make a fold-over note card, it is usually, let's say it's a 5x7 card, and it's like this, and then you open it up, correct? So what that means is it might be 7 inches wide, and folded it's 5 inches, but open that makes it 10 inches, right? Everybody gets that. And then for all documents, you end up creating a bleed of 1/8 of an inch. But when it comes to the fold-over note card, my recommendation for you is to create a bleed of 1/4 of an inch, and I'll show you why in a second. And I'm going to ignore the margins. I'm going to turn off facing pages, and we're going to make a 2-page document for the front of the fold-over note card, correct? And then for the inside of the fold-over note card, it's a 2-page document. Everybody understands that? So here's our document set up right here. And Thomas's question was, what do I do with the score marks? Because probably what happened was the card is 10 inches high, so I'm dragging a guide down to the 5-inch mark. And I'm just going to zoom in here, right into this part across the center. What you probably did, Thomas, tell me if I'm right, is you took the line tool, you held your shift key down, and you drew a line across here. You stroked the line. I'm sure you used the right color. I'm sure you used registration color.
Yeah.
And you placed a dashed line across the page. And we can't see it. Let me make it super beefy so you can see it. You placed a dashed line across the page, and I said you don't put score marks across the live area because that would print on your note card, and that would look kind of cheesy, right? Okay, so your question was, do I just use a scissor tool and cut it? What do I do? Well, the simple answer is this. You just make your dashed line sit in the bleed right there. And if it's not 1 point, if it's a 1/2 point, and let me show you by previewing with the bleed area. Let me zoom in here. It's going to look like that. In other words, it's going to sit in the bleed area. It's not going to touch your trim. And you have 1 score mark on that side of your page, and you take the score mark, and I got to zoom in a little more to grab it. And I'm holding my option key down and my shift key, and I'm just dragging it across the page to the other bleed area. And that's what a score mark does. That's it. It sits in the bleed. Okay, and that's how you set it up. And what happens is I would copy both of these score marks right here. I would go to Edit Copy, and I would go to page 2 of my document right here, and I would go to Edit, Paste and Place, because you want the score marks on every page in exactly the right location. So that's how you'd set up for the firefighter assignment, get credit for it correctly. And when you end up doing the single fold card in the future, you do it the same way, or actually what I'm going to teach you in the future, just so you know, is I'm going to delete this on page 1, and I'm going to delete the score marks on page, on page 1 and 2, and I'm going to go to something called a master page, which we haven't talked about. But the point of a master page is everything you put on that page will show up on every page. So if I'm at my page panel in the upper right corner of the screen and I click on the master page, I'm no longer on your document pages. I'm on the page that is called a master page, and you can make many master pages, but for this one, let me just show it to you. Let me view in normal mode. If I go to Edit, Paste, and Place, because those score marks were set up properly, I've pasted them on the master page. Can you see them back there? If I go to page 1 now, you'll notice, let me move this guideline because it covers it. Can you see that they're on the page 1? Same thing on page 2. There's the guidelines. It shows up on every master page.
So you have to select the master page.
Right. So what happens is I can make a new master page. So this is master page A. See that? Right? So I'm going to make a new master page. New master page. It's a little pull-out panel of the page panel. And I'm going to call this Ben's master page. You can name them whatever the heck you want. And I'm going to double-click on Ben's master page, B. It's called master page B. And I'm going to make a big text box on B, and I'm going to say Ben, so we can know it's yours. There we go. Made your name way too big, didn't I? But I didn't want us to miss it. There. So notice up in the right corner, let me tear this off for you. The master page A had the score marks on it. Master page B has your name on it. Now, watch what happens when I drag master page B down on top of master page A in number 1 and number 2. Can you see? It now, if I click on page 1, there's Ben. If I click on page 2, there's the score marks, because that's a master page A. So I'm on page 2 right now. Notice my page panel. I'm on page 2. It's using master page A. If I override it and drag down master page B, your name shows up.
So then, if you make another page, like a third page,
If I make a third page, I can either
you have to
drag A, or I can drag B, or I can drag none. And I know that you were asking why our master page is valuable, right? That was your immediate question. Why would I want Ben to show up on every page, right? But maybe I decide that I want all my pages, maybe I decide that I want all my pages to have a name on it, and I don't want to retype the font and retype the position of the text box and retype all the artwork. So I can go to master page 1. I'm sorry, I could go to page 1 and leave it for Ben. I could double click on page 2, and I use Shift and Command, and I'm releasing this text box because the master page is locked, and I can type this as Thomas, who I'm abbreviating today. And I can click on page 4, and I can release my master box because it's locked by holding the Shift and the Command key. And I can type Z's name today. And the advantage is that they're all in the same place, the font is the same size, I don't have to redo it. Now, where this is super valuable, since we're on master pages right now, as we're kind of always digressing, I could create another master page. Let me make a new master page, let's say. New master page. And one of the things actually we're going to talk about today, now that I realize it. So for those of you who aren't looking, you're not going to want to miss this because this is your final project. You're going to create a process book, and your process book is going to need and use master pages. And I'll review this one more time. I'm going to do this quickly because I realize I wish I had captured your screen for it. But for example, you might decide that you create on every page a text box. You make your text box, you go to Object Text Frame Options, and you make your text box 2 columns wide, and you make your text box have a gutter of 1/2 inch. That's on every master page. And then what you decide is you're going to create a headline on every master page. And you want your headline to be 72 points on 72 points leading. And you also use that paragraph selection, and you want your headline to span 2 columns. Have I shown you this before? This is super cool. Watch what happens. If using the paragraph panel with the text selected, I can make my headline, it's a 2-column box in front of you. I can tell my headline, though, I want it to cross over those 2 columns instead of breaking. I want it to span 2 columns. And then I can hit a return. And I'm going to change my font size to Let's make it big. Let's make it 18 on 36. And I'm going to fill it with placeholder text so you can see it. And then I select all of this text and use my paragraph panel. And I don't want it to span 2 columns. I want it in the 2-column setup I specified. Now the advantage of this is by setting this up as a master page, and let me put some graphic in here. Let me put a graphic that bleeds. We'll just fill it with color for now so you can see where it goes. And let me apply a text wrap to it. Window, text wrap, and just wrap around that. So we'll wrap around it incrementally so you can see it. Okay, so you can see that I've created a little layout here, right? Well, the advantage of this is if I go back to my page panel, page panel there, I can drag down, I can go to page 1, but I can drag down master page C and replace it. And so all I have to do now is enter my text and change my photo. So the advantage of having a master page is you create layouts for yourself so you don't have to set them up on every single page. Yeah.
Is there a quicker way that you can apply that master page to all of your pages
Yes.
without dragging it?
Not after I've created it, but I could add, let's see, insert new pages, insert C master pages. Let me put pages, after page 2, I'm going to add 5 pages using master page C, okay? And see what happened to my page panel there. So once I've set up this page, the one with Z's name on it, if I drag master page C on top of it, because I unlocked the master page when I typed her name, what happens is her name is now floating unlocked on the page. I can apply and change this to master page C, but Z's name, you still can't see it because of text wrap. We'll tell it to ignore text wrap. But her name is still on that page. So no, I can't universally change the entire document to new pages. What I can do, if I haven't released something, so for example, let me insert page 1 in front of page 1. So I'm adding a page. What I can do is go to my master page, and here's where it's super valuable. I can go to my master page. I'm on my master page now, and I can change this, and it will universally change. Let me come back over to here. It will universally change all master pages if you haven't overridden them and released them. The reason why it changed page 1 is because when I change the master page, it changes all master pages unless you've released what's on that master page. So the advantage for a master page, for example, is that I can go to master page A, back to those score marks that Thomas asked us about, and let's say I want on every master page, I want the page number to be centered at the bottom right here. I can go to type, I can insert a special character, a page marker, the current page number I'm on, okay? And I can center this, and it shows up as an A because it's a master page A. You're currently on master page A. But if I drag master page A to here, to here, to here, right? And now I come down here, you'll notice page 1 says page 1. Can you guys see that where you're sitting? Page 2 says page 2. Page 3 will say page 3. Follow that? So the advantage of master pages is there's some things you're not going to change, like page numbers or specific layouts. Yeah, whose hands up? Marlon. Yeah, hi.
Is there any way of combining one master page and the other? Like in one page? And
Well,
using
so
both of the layouts.
yeah, so let me take master page C, and let me copy all the stuff, right? Let me copy it, Command C. Let me go to master page A where I have that page number. Let me go to edit, paste in place. And now I have my page number. Whoops. Actually, let me just change that a second here. Now I have my page number here, right? And I've got my layout. I can do whatever I want to a master page. I can't stack them. I can't say put A on top of C, but I can build a master page with all the elements I want. That answer you? Okay. Are there any questions? That was me typically digressing. And I can see some of you are missing it because you're focused on doing your assignments, which is, there'll be a video available since I started capturing this. Any other questions back there? Okay, so we digressed, and that was all based on Thomas's question of how do I put score marks in? And actually knowing how to put in proper score marks is part of your final. So knowing that and being clear about it would probably earn you about 10 points on your final. So hopefully you all understand that. Okay? All right. So what I'm going to do is pause this video. No. Okay. So to answer Sunny's question for starters, I'm going to locate in our downloads folder the work that Yuki emailed me the other day in class, because hopefully it's still there. Or actually, I think mine might be there, but that's okay. We'll try it. Yuki, do you see yours up here? No, not yet. This is it, right? No. Oh, that won't work though. I needed your zip folder.
Folder zip.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to have to come at it a different way. Let's close Photoshop. Let me get to this work folder. Let me view it by date. Here we are. Here's your zip folder. And so if I double click on this now and it says AI and Illustrator's open, on this computer, Illustrator will probably open it. So what we're talking about is where Sunny ran into trouble. Sunny created colors and tints. And what I'm assuming you did, Sunny, is I'm assuming that you went to the color guide. Did you do that? To see the tints and shades here? Is that what you did? Exactly. Okay. So take a look at the tints and shades in front of you. If I select in the swatch panel one of Yuki's colors, which was orange, PMS Orange 21, notice here that these tints have little spots in the corner, little dots. That means it's a spot color. Here's where you're going to fall into a hole, a black hole. Two things. If you use the tints and shades here without the spots, which I think you probably did, Sunny, those don't have a spot, and that means that they are a greater selection of color tints of that color, but they are not a spot color. So if I select this color and I look at the color makeup of it in my color panel right here, you notice it's a CMYK blend, cyan, magenta, yellow, black blend. So you don't want those. Okay? If you wanted to create a brown shade or something like that, you would have to blend your two spot colors.
I did that with the other ones. I figured that much.
Okay. All right. So the other thing that you can get in trouble with is this. If I take this color in the color guide, the first 100% solid color, and I drag it to my swatch panel, I want you to see what it's named. Here's the color Yuki first set up his file with, which is Orange 21C. That's the name of the file. But because I selected this 100% orange color from Color Guide, look at the name of this file. Orange 21C1. So essentially what I did is I added a second swatch of 100% 21C, and it had to rename it a different name, so it created that swatch color and it duplicated it. So if I use, so let's look at it this way. If I create a square and I apply this color to it, 21C, and I save this file, and I go to Window Color Separations, or Separation Preview in Illustrator, that's how you can view it, and I turn that on, notice I now have two 21Cs. They're named differently. The computer doesn't know it's still orange. The computer just sees a name and gives it an ink swatch color. So if I color separate this the way I would when I'm creating two separate printing plates to print this, one the green plate, one the orange plate, notice that this creates a third plate, and then of course the black stroke that I had on it creates a fourth plate.
So there's not an actual purpose to it doing that. They just haven't developed software enough to recognize that it's the same color.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's exactly right. I think it was Ryan or Julia or one of you had like 4 colors of the same ink color because it named it as 21C1, 21C2, 21C3. So you have to pay attention to it. The computer doesn't know it's orange, that spot color orange. It just sees a name. So you just have to be a real purist in how you handle your files. Is that clear for everybody? Did anybody run into that problem?
The next question will be, where do you go to get his range that he has up there?
Where do you go to get his
Or
tints?
did he actually create all?
Oh, Yuki, why don't you answer how you created those? His question was, how did you go get your tints? Same way through the color guide. You just remember not to take the first one. He remembered not to take the first one because I had talked about it in
I
class.
think if you select the range in the color guide, if you like select all of them and drag them into your swatches, I
Yes.
think it creates its own
Yes, it does.
like file or whatever it is. It creates its own like I
Group.
don't know what it's called, but
Group?
yeah.
So I could create a folder. I can make a new folder. I can make a color group. And I have this little folder here, right? I could drag in these swatches. I can drag in all of them. Is that what you're telling me? Drag them into my folder. But here's a 21C2.
You
I
don't
made
even have
another.
to create the folder first if you just select all the colors.
I would not have to create the folder first. So, okay, so let me understand you. So come up here and do it, Ben. Come up and show us what you mean, so I interpreted you
Because
right.
I ran into the same problem. I had like a million colors that were all the same. So I think. So yeah, if this is all of your spot colors,
Uh-huh,
I think you can just select them all,
uh-huh.
drag them in, and then there's your group. And I think if you hadn't, here, I think is what I had to do. I had to delete all of these. And then, let's see, this is set up differently.
Don't you hate being up here?
Yeah.
Because then it's like, man, what if I screw up?
Well, it's set up differently for my
Okay.
screen too.
Uh-huh. What are you looking for?
How you brought up his colors, the
Oh,
anthem
his
colors.
swatch colors?
Yeah.
Well, you just trashed them. So hit undo, because you trashed them.
Okay.
You trashed all of them.
Oh, okay.
So trash some of them, if that's your intention.
Yeah.
Your intention is to click on one color. Probably.
Yeah, and bring them up in here.
Yeah, go ahead. Click on one color. It will bring it up in there.
Oh, cool. Okay, so there's your range.
Right. Right. There's your range. But if you already have one of those colors in the range,
Oh, right.
it'll name it
so you'd
number
have to get
2.
rid of these first,
Correct.
and then drag these into here, and I think it creates its own.
Wait, you were both talking. Say that again, Ben.
I think if you have these in your
Yes.
tints already, and then you delete these, and then you select them
And add them.
and add
Right.
them.
You
yeah.
just can't, no matter what
It'll just
you
bring
say,
it
you
its own
just
version.
can't have duplicates, right?
Yeah.
And then to further, why don't you show Sunny how you can click on a spot color, any spot color in your swatch panel. Okay, like the green. And you can use the slider bar in your color panel to make some random percentage like 64. And you can drag the swatch from here, from the color panel, up into here, because
That
you
makes
can
sense.
make as many tints as you want. You can make 100 tints.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Well, that's what I'm
5.
saying, isn't there, didn't you show us a spot where they're already there? And you can just go grab
Yeah,
the
we
whole
just
group?
we just did. The
So
color
it has
guide.
to have the dot.
It has to have
So
the dot.
basically, tints are based on, or they're variations of one Pantone color and shades where you're adding black.
What you said is those are tints of the Pantone color
Right.
without adding black to it. Yes,
Well, that's what a tint is.
yes.
A shade
Yes.
is that in black. Same thing in paint.
We're only having tints, thank you, Ben. We're not shading it with
So-
black.
So it doesn't, if it has a drop, doesn't mean it's a different Pantone color altogether. It's just a tint of one Pantone color.
In this case, yes.
Okay.
In this case, yes. And I'm
But
hedging
that's
my
it. I'm just saying
answer.
if I go to that same thing with tints and shades and I just pick the tints, then I'm okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Don't go to, right, yes. If you just pick tints and you don't pick shades, yes, you're right. However, this tint, if I drag this up here, this tint number is 67%, and it has a number 1 next to it. See that? Because he already pulled a 67% earlier, so we just duplicated the swatch, so it made 2 of them. So that's going to see it as a different ink color. You just got to be careful. You got to be a purist on your names is really what you have to do. And let me just review so you guys don't get all, you don't drown in this thing, which is this. I want you all to see. I'm going to revert to saved here.
And after this, can you go over how you brought up the bunch of different colors by mixing the two that you had chosen?
Yeah, that's only in InDesign. I'm happy to do that. Okay, so let me just do this. Let me just delete all of these and trash them. So we only have one spot color showing. All right? We have one spot color showing, and what that means, because I trashed them, look what happened to the green color since I deleted the spot color. If I click on the green became a CMYK mix. Okay, and then for the orange color, I can create a variety of tints and just drag them without using that color guide, Sunny. I can just click on my slider bar here and create a whole world of tints. Got that? I can do it that way. That I don't have to use the
And that's
color
different
guide.
than opacity.
Yes, opacity would be if I took
That's how you get the different colors.
this box of orange and I made it, and let's forget spot colors for the moment, and I made it pink, and I went to window in Illustrator, window transparency, and I made it transparent of, let's say, 50%. Yes, it changed the opacity. Didn't change. It changed the tint of the color because it changed the opacity. If there's something behind it,
You can see
it's
through it.
you can see through it, right? Okay.
That's how I got the color on my chicken.
Okay. Good. That's fine. If that's a way to accomplish
I
it,
just didn't
that's
use the right color.
okay. That is a way to accomplish it, to change your transparency. And then to answer your question, Thomas, was what?
How you brought up the color.
Oh, mixed colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Two color overlay.
So, yeah, and Yuki was so efficient with his artwork that if I open his InDesign file, right here, he made color tints already for us. Let me update his links. So here's his work. Let me change this to advanced. Let me pull up the window swatches, window color swatches. Yuki already made mixed colors, and how he did that was he went to the pull-out menu here. He went to create a new group. You can make one mixed ink swatch, or you can make a group of them, right? Let's make a group because it's more impressive. And you scroll down, and somehow we put 2 colors in here since we screwed up his chicken earlier. But let's pick the orange, and let's pick the green, and let's change it incrementally, let's say 10%, and let's change the orange incrementally 5%, and let's make them repeat themselves 10 times each, okay? We can preview all the swatches here. Oh, I can't do that. I have to make this, let's make this 10. No, maybe now I can do it. There it is. Preview the swatches. Now you can see it mixes the greens, it mixes the oranges, and it creates all these swatches. I'm scrolling through them. You know, we have, what, 100? I don't know, something like that. And I can add this to my swatch panel. And here we go. And all of these swatches are built with spot colors,
The two spots.
the 2 spot colors.
I think when you changed his file, chicken file in Illustrator.
Yeah, I brought in another one. I did. I screwed up. Yes. Is that clear for you?
Mhm.
That's only in InDesign. It doesn't do it in Illustrator, unfortunately. Okay. So I'm going to introduce your next assignment, which is your postcard assignment. And like I said, I recommend that you feel confident with this because it essentially is exactly what your midterm's on, which is worth 200 points. So it's double weighted. It's a double weighted project weight, so it's a lot of your grade. Let's come down here and see where we're at. Tax reps. All right, first we need to talk about a few things. So the reason why we're working with spot color is because primarily when you design work for printing, you're going to work with really two colors because it's most cost effective. And when you make decisions for your clients about how many colors you want to print with, you're really going to have to think long and hard what costs you're going to cause your client to incur time and time again. So if you design a logo for a client, for example, and it's full color, you've already made a commitment on your client's behalf that they're going to have to print full color every time their logo shows up somewhere. So to override that, you might decide that you design a one-color logo that might just print in black, and then you might design a two-color version of the logo, and then a four-color version of exactly the same logo, which is possible. Or you can stick to a two-color version and use all these beautiful mixed ink swatches to create the design. So if you take a look at this here, well, you know what? Let's talk about first the difference between CMYK and Pantone inks. So let me pause. Was that video clear for everybody? You know, he thank you. Thanks, Marlon. I like that hand going up. He said that the spot colors, the rosettes, the CMYK spots, the dots that build it up are called halftones. And he said that they overlay each other. They actually don't. They actually sit side by side at different angles to one another. And it's their proximity to one another and the size of their dots that create the illusion of those colors. How many of you are familiar with the artist George Seurat? Nobody?
I think of Lichtens.
Oh, let's take a look. There's an artist, let me make a new window here, called Seurat. And he was a pointillist. He was an impressionist painter, and he did pointillist paintings. And here's a super, super close-up of one of his paintings. Oh, here it goes. And he painted his paintings using dots, thus the name pointillism. And it was the proximity of these colors in relation to one another, not on top of each other, that created the illusion of full color in his paintings. Because if I go backwards to a previous image that we saw on the screen, like this one, this entire painting is created pointillistically. In other words, it's the same thing as that close-up you saw of the head. It's just dots of color side by side. And that essentially is the same as how we print all of our catalogs and brochures and full color pieces. It's the relationship of two colors side by side that create an illusion of color. So let's see.
Is that why in the movie it like zooms in on it? Or on that same painting right there?
Is that why it zoomed in on that same painting?
There's like a movie where they're all
It's
like
Ferris
looking
Bueller's
at
Day
it.
Off.
Yeah,
Ferris Bueller's Day Off, they
and
zoom
they're,
in on that
looking at
painting.
it, and then
Really?
Yeah.
it zooms in really close to like the girl's face. And,
Really? I don't
shows, like,
remember. I've seen that
separate
It
movie.
zooms in right on her eyeball.
I don't remember that scene. Let's see. I wonder if I Googled that, if that would show up. That's so funny. Yes, that is why. To answer your question more simply, let's see what this says. So Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Seurat. Let's
Yeah,
see. Let's see what
Cameron's-
happens.
Cameron's staring at the picture.
Talk about digressing.
So when they're auditing in the city.
Yeah. put it in the museum.
Am I missing it?
Ode to Cameron Fry.
What are you looking at?
It says Ode to Cameron Fry as the character.
Oh.
I was,
What's that?
I was totally thinking that you're going to use this video too.
Of course I will. It shows up all the time. So here's me digressing even worse from here. I used to teach art in middle school, and I used to teach art in high school, and then there was a year I even taught kindergarten art. And I did an assignment for my students in high school and middle school that was pointillism, where we set up paints and we set up Q-tips and we painted pointillism. But the funnier part was it was equally, of course, successful for kindergartners, because once you tell them don't put those Q-tips in the wrong colors, they get real type A about it, and they're real meticulous, and they did incredible pointillism paintings. So it's, you know, if you really want to be obsessive, it's really a beautiful way to paint. It's kind of fun. Well, thanks, Ryan. I really enjoyed that this morning. Thank you. That was good. All right, so away from digressing, we were talking about printing with spot colors. And this is an example. This is a brochure unfolded, 8.5 by 11, which would be a trifold. It would fold like a letter, except vertically. And that's an example of using one color, one spot color, and different tones of that color for
So isn't there a spot, like we were talking before with big tints and shades, isn't there a section that says monochromatic? Are those all based off the Pantone?
Man, I just got lost in my own stuff. Designing for offset printing, how many colors? There we go. You asked if there was something that said monochromatic.
No, I saw it. It said part of it.
Oh,
Option. I
yes.
was wondering if they're based off the same Pantone or if it has the dots. it is.
Are you talking about in a software you saw the word monochromatic, or in the software? Yes. In Photoshop, you can create something monochrome. In Illustrator, you saw something that said monochrome. Yeah, it might not be necessarily. I know. I see. You were probably looking at color palettes, and it said monochromatic color palettes. It might not be using spot color. It might be mixing monochromatic colors for you. But obviously, if you're picking one color ink and you tints of that color, that is monochromatic. Yes. Here's an example of a design that used 2 spot colors and tints of that color to create a stationery package and a logo package. And I actually designed that logo. And the funnier thing is you probably can't see it from a distance, but it was for the Ventura County Gastroenterology group. You know what gastroenterology is? How do you design an attractive logo for gastroenterology, right? So that was my solution for it. 3-color printing doesn't have a picture, and that's because 3-color printing is rarely used. There's really, from my experience, I have never seen a 3-color press. Usually you go from a 2-color printing press to a 4-color printing press. And if you're printing 3 colors, you're probably printing on a 4-color press and not using one of the wells, right? And then 4-color printing, like this image here, would be printed with processed color. And for every color, you need a printing plate. For every well, you probably need a larger press. So a 1-color press is obviously much smaller than a 4-color press. So at the end of the semester, we're going to see 4- and 6-color printing presses. And then finally, 6-color printing presses would use something like processed color. And then it would probably add, as you've seen in some of the examples we passed around the room, a varnish or a metallic color, a metallic spot color, or the combination of a dull and gloss varnish. Each of those varnishes will fill up another well on the printing press. Okay, is everybody clear about that? So understanding the number of inks you're going to use determines obviously the design you're going to create. And that's why we're looking through all of this. Now, one of the things that you do need to be aware of is this, and this is kind of a sophisticated concept. You don't really have to do anything about it, but an awareness and knowledge of it will help you be a better designer. It'll also help you be better when you're critiquing print work when you're at a print shop. So there's something called, anybody ever seen a newspaper ad, like a color ad or a magazine ad, where the picture looks all blurry and it's all out of alignment? Anybody ever seen that? Raise your hands. Okay, thanks. Okay, that's called misregistration. So everything, good morning, everything we do when we create our print work, and everything we do when we proof our print work, and everything we look for when something's printed is all to make the clearest, sharpest image possible, obviously. So when you generate your PDF files, let's see what we got. We're going to pull up Yuki, who thankfully gave us all these great PDF files. No, wrong folder. That's okay. Let's see what I got. Here we are. Is your PDF in there? Yeah. Okay, so the whole reason you have this registration mark at the top of the page and at like north, south, east, and west of the page, you know, for lack of a better description, that's called a registration mark. And registration color, as you now know, prints every color that's on the page. So registration color looks black, but it's made up of every single color on the page. And the idea is that every printing plate has a registration crosshairs, and you will, and the printer, the man, I say man because I've never met a female printer yet, the person standing at the press is going to register these crosshairs like you would in the scope of what? Anybody ever looked through a scope of a rifle and you look for the crosshairs, right? Same thing. The idea is to register those crosshairs so you can't differentiate any other color and they're dead on target. They're also called target marks. And same thing with these crop marks right there, and same thing with bleed marks. They're all there on your page, one, to tell the print shop where you trim your document. They're there to help the printer, the person putting the ink on the paper, to register the image so it's as crisp and sharp as possible. When something is misregistered, it's improperly aligned. And the reason things can be improperly aligned has to do with a poor pressman not registering his pages and plates properly, or the fact that paper gets damp from the moisture on the press because there's water and oil. Remember that conversation about offset printing? So the paper might start to stretch a little if it goes through the press too many times. So in order to avoid what's called misregistration, there's a concept called trapping. Anybody in here ever heard the concept called trapping for printing? Okay, trapping is this. Look at this image called good registration says no trapping. If you have a box on a box, a blue box on a pink box like this, let's just draw one so you get the idea. Here's my InDesign document. Here's a box. I'm going to fill it with blue. Color swatches. I'm going to fill that with blue. I'm going to put a circle on top of it. And I'm going to fill my circle with pink. Okay. And here we go. So right now, I drew a whole big blue box. I put a pink circle on top of it. If this were overprinting that blue, the circle, what color would the pink be? If it were printing on top of the blue ink, what color would it be? So if you mix blue and pink, what do you get? Purple, right. So we're not looking at a purple circle, we're looking at a magenta circle or pink circle. And the reason for that is, let me come back to the lecture. The reason for that is there's something called a knockout, where the blue square sits on the pink box in this page, right? And what it does is the computer software says we want it to look blue, it's sitting on a pink box, we have to create a knockout for it. It tells it to knock it out. So if you're in InDesign and you look at your color separations, output separations as you've done, and you turn off the pink circle, magenta, it's created a knockout for you. It's not overprinting the blue. There's nothing behind that pink circle. The software does it for you automatically. You don't even have to think about it. It's just magic. If we chose this pink circle and we chose to go to, where is this found now? I'm looking for the word attributes. So I don't even think it's listed in here anymore now. They put it in different, here it is, output attributes. Okay. So if I go to the attributes panel and I make this pink circle active and I tell this pink circle to overprint the blue, look what happens. It's purple because there is, if I turn off my pink now for my separations, there's no knockout. Do you understand that concept now? Does that make sense? Okay. So if we look at, if we come back to misregistration, there's something called trapping and knockouts. So if I have this blue square here on top of this pink square, and it registers perfectly, it looks like that. It's beautiful. There's no weird edges. If it misregisters, like this one that says no trapping, and the blue square is a hair off of the pink, you get that little white halo thing. You guys have seen that in printing. That's misregistration. So nothing's perfect in the world, and printers can't be that dead on target on every sheet of paper. So built into your software is something called trapping. And what trapping does is this. Here's the easiest way to see it. It takes that blue square and it spreads it out a little. It takes the size of the square and it says, oh, just spread it out like a hairline, like 0.2. Less than a half a point, a hair. Our eye won't even notice it. And what it does by spreading it out, it takes that spread and it overprints that spread on the pink, just that little hairline edge. That's called a trap. And you can see it right here, that little blue edge. And you can see if you misregister something and your box isn't quite centered on the pink, you could see that the trapping still gives you that forgiveness so you don't get that white halo around the artwork. Does everybody follow that? That's called trapping. What happens to your artwork when you create something, the reason why it didn't overprint the blue is called a knockout. And understanding these things is really important. For those of you who ever choose to generate color separations to make your own silkscreen t-shirts, where you're going to generate your own film or stencils from it, you're going to have to build in your own traps if you're butting up two colors. So what happens is if you're butting up a blue and a pink, it really doesn't touch like my hands do, I'm showing you. It really overlaps a hair. Does everybody get that? And that's called a trap.
That's why they printed brighter colors.
Would that make the like further like purple?
Yes, it absolutely will. You're absolutely correct. What it will really do, yes. What it really does is it's really taking this pink circle, and your computer's doing this. You don't have to do it. And I can stroke the pink circle. Let's make it 1 point so you can see it. Okay? And then let me take that stroke and let me overprint it. And let's zoom in here now and see what happened. And yes, it's exactly what happened. That little one hairline stroke overprints the blue, and yes, it's purple. But it's so fine, Ryan, that your eye just really doesn't notice it. Now, a long time ago, you know, talk about how old I am, right? Back to, there was no automatic trapping. As a designer, I had to understand the concept, and I had to build it into all of my files. There was no automatic software for trapping. So I would have to create artwork like I just showed you right now in our example, where I build in my trapping where needed. Okay? Now, I'm sorry, say that?
How would you do that before programming?
Well, in an Illustrator file, I do exactly what you just saw me do. I create artwork.
I mean before like Illustrator. 'Cause you
Oh,
said-
before there were computers?
Yeah.
Oh, remember the conversation we had about the cost of the film work for my artboards? And the fact that they would put sheets of film in to create halftone dots
Yeah.
that look like a screen, which is why it's called a screen
Yeah.
picture. That's what they do. They'd put in, literally, before computers, they'd take a negative and they'd take a secondary image and they'd put a sheet of clear film in the middle. They'd sandwich them so there would be 3 sheets of film, and a little teeny bit of light would leak in because of that clear sheet of film in the center, and it would generate what's called a spread. And sometimes there's something called, let's come back to this lecture. So here is an example of where 3 shapes spread. So notice the yellow one spreads a little into the pink there. Notice the blue one spreads a little into the pink there. And notice the yellow spreads a little into the blue, right? There's also something called a choke, which means if you have a lighter color on the bottom and a darker color on top, it's always the lighter color that's going to do the spreading out because that's the least noticeable. So if a lighter color is on the top, it's called a spread. If the lighter color is on the bottom, then what happens is the darker colors are doing a choke. They'll get a little bit, what? Smaller. Yeah, thank you. I was trying to think how to explain it based on this image, but absolutely. And you don't have to do a thing about this, is the point. See, here's a lighter pink on top of the blue. So the blue is choking that pink color. All right? Here's a straight knockout, nothing overlaps. And here's where a choke is applied. Now, if you have overprinting like this, where you change transparencies of your images and you have 2 colors overprinting each other, then what the software is doing is saying, I'm taking this tint, I'm taking this tint, we're taking the dots that makes the tint, right? Because that's how things are tinted, by little dots of ink. And we're setting them side by side. And they're essentially overprinting each other. They are overprinting each other to blend the 2 colors. Okay? Everybody get that? All right.
So overprinting is pretty much like opacity.
Absolutely. Yes. And there's many ways to overprint. This is also part of your next assignment too, so let's stay with this. If you're in InDesign and you want to overprint something, there's 2 ways you can do it. Same thing in Illustrator. Actually, same thing in Photoshop, but let's stay with Illustrator and InDesign. So here's my blue. Here's my pink circle. It is not overprinting. I went to Window. Where did I find that? Attributes, Output, Attributes. And this little window comes up. I make my circle active. If I want to take my solid pink and overprint my blue behind it, I click Overprint and I get purple. Here's another way. I can take my pink. I can go to Window. In InDesign, I can go to Effects, and I can change the opacity of the pink right here, so it's kind of transparent. And now I have a 53% pink image sitting on my solid blue image.
So technically, the difference between opacity and a tint would just be that opacity is a tint, but they don't apply a knockout.
Correct. Wow, that was extremely articulate. Wait, let me repeat it. I have a little video here. What you said was, say it really loud so my little video hears you.
That opacity and tint are the same thing, except opacity doesn't apply a knockout.
Right. Opacity and tint are the same thing. They both create a tint, but the opacity does not knock out what's below it. And tint does, yes. Because right now, if I change, so this is a 53% opacity. If I take my pink color and, I don't see my color panel here, and I take color, my pink is active, and I change my fill to 50%, it's not knocking it, I mean, it is knocking out the blue behind it. It's just a 50% tint. That was great. Does everybody get that one? Yeah? Alrighty. So, so that's where how you make an overprint, is by changing the opacity. There's another way to do it as well. Let me confuse you one more step. Let me make this pink solid. And using my effects panel in InDesign, I can make the pink active. I can apply multiply, which is a layer blending mode, and multiply behaves like overprint as well. So if I view this and I turn off the pink, and we'll see if there's a knockout, there's no knockout, there's just solid blue, right? And if I'm in Illustrator, so I'm switching softwares on you. Let me close this window. So I'm in Illustrator. Whoops, make a new document. And I draw a square in Illustrator, and I fill it with blue. And I draw a circle in Illustrator, and I fill it with pink. Everything's stroked here. Illustrator has that same default issue as InDesign does. No strokes. There you go. And in Illustrator, you know how to view your separations, window separation preview. Again, same thing. If I turn off magenta, the knockout's created, not any different. If I want to make my pink overprint in Illustrator, it's really the same thing. There should be an attributes box here, I think.
There it is.
Where do you guys see it?
On top of
Oh, attributes, thank you. All right. So same thing, behaves the same way. So here's my pink active. I click on overprint fill, and again, it's purple, right? And if I turn off my pink separation to see how it looks, again, it doesn't knock it out. And same thing as in InDesign. If I take my pink and I go window transparency right here, and my transparency windows somewhere, here it is. So my pink is active. I change my transparency to 50% transparent. It's same as opacity, right? Changes the opacity right here. Or I can, again, make it at 100%, and I can change my blending mode to multiply, and it overprints and doesn't create the knockout, right? So is that clear for everybody? Useful, right? Useful. Okay. So back to our lecture, which basically is just saying, when you look at something that's printed, understand what your software is doing regarding opacities, transparencies, and overprinting and knockouts, and know how to apply them when you work in the software, which you will use in your next assignment. So let me come back to our lectures. Now, when we do a mailing, okay, when we create artwork, like a postcard, let me see if this is a postcard. Yep, all right, here's a postcard. And this postcard has no mailing information on it. How many people in this class have mailed a letter in a mailbox? Okay, thank you. I can't tell you how many students, I know, I cannot tell you how many students I run across who never have done that. How many people know how to address? So I know if you mail your bills, you fold the piece of paper up, you put your check in, and you don't have to address the envelope because there's a little window and it showed up through it. How many people have addressed an envelope? All right. So that's fantastic. Then you're all going to do incredibly successfully on this next project. You think I'm being funny. I am not. I'm so serious. So one of the things that's really important to know as a designer is the fact that when you mail something, it's your job to understand the weight of different papers, which reminds me, I got to open the cabinets here. Did we pass out swatch books yet for this class?
Yeah.
Did everybody have one in their hands and look at them individually? Okay, good, saves us time. Okay, so remember how we talked about the weight of different papers and so forth regarding swatch books and paper samples? Okay, so it's your job as a graphic artist to know that if you're designing a postcard for your client, you're going to specify the paper it prints on. That's your job. Your job is to know what colors there are, what paper weights there are. It's also your job to know what weight the post office requires a postcard to be. You all follow that? So I'm sorry, I got distracted because somebody who works for the print shop we're going to visit just walked in that little hallway there. And I couldn't figure out why, because he doesn't go to school here. Anyway, so your job is to know that if you're printing a postcard, it must be a minimum of 7-point weight, which it means that it's about the weight of a business card, which is a 65-pound cover. Did we talk about how we come up with the weights of papers? I don't think we did. Okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. And if you don't know this information, the reason why I took you to this website is the post office has everything you ever want to know about mailing and weights and postage. The other thing you want to know about that is, let's come to understanding paper. The other thing you want to know about that is that you must take a sample of something that you're going to do a mailing for, and you need to take a sample of what you're going to do a mailing for, and you need to take it to the post office, and you need them to sign off on it. Because one time, you guys just close your laptop. Because one time I did a mailing, so one of my first jobs, remember I didn't know how to be a graphic artist. Did I tell you that story? I didn't know, I never had graphic design training, so I had to do a mailing for the first job I got. Did I say I got my first job in graphic design? Okay, I lied. And it's true. I wanted to get a job in graphic design. I had sold ad sales, and I started to realize that I liked graphic design, so I worked at a newspaper and asked for loads of, I asked for all the information I could on what they were doing and kind of learned it by the seat of my pants. And then I wanted a job as a graphic artist, so a job came open in a national manufacturer for an ad director, and the way that they were interviewing was they gave the people who were being interviewed the opportunity to create an ad campaign for them. So I asked everybody to help me to create an ad campaign, and I got the job. And then I still didn't know graphic design, so whenever I needed help with anything, I asked for help. So I went to a print shop and I said, okay, I need to create a mailing campaign. What do I need to know? And in creating this mailing campaign, they told me everything. I created the mailing piece, I created the envelope, and I created what was called a business reply postcard. And you know business reply postcards that fall out of magazines that have those bars going across the address side of them? Well, when I took this sample package to the post office before I had it printed and asked approval for it, the person at the post office gave me approval, said, yes, everything's wonderful, it looks great, you're going to have no problem. I gave them samples of the paper weight, the size, what it was going to weigh, the indicia, which you're going to learn about. Does anybody know what an indicia is? Hi, John.
Hi.
An indicia is the little stamp that's printed on something that gets mailed, so you don't have to put a stamp on it, right? So it's free mailing to you. That's called an indicia. And so we printed up 6,000 mailing pieces. The office, people in the office stuffed the mailing pieces in the envelope. They stuffed the little postcard reply card that we printed in the envelope. We addressed the envelopes. We sealed the envelopes. We sorted the envelopes by zip code because bulk mailing by zip code is cheaper than first class. And we took the bags of this to the post office, and when you get something mailed to the post office, bulk mailing, they take samplings out of each of your bags, they slit it open to see what it is, and they slit it open and they looked at it and they said, this is wrong. I said, what do you mean it's wrong? I got it approved. And they said, well, your little business reply card doesn't have those bars on it, so it won't go out without having those bars on it. So you know what that meant? It meant that the entire mailing had to be disassembled, all the postcards had to be gathered, they had to be reprinted with the bars on it, all 6,000 of them, and then they had to be resorted, restuffed, okay? You get the idea. Big mistake, big mistake. So I learned two things. I learned you need the bars on it. I also learned that when you get the post office to approve it, you get the name of the person who approved it, and you have them sign every piece that it's approved and authorized by the post office. So they know that what they're giving you an okay on is okay. Now, the other thing is, I took you to the United States Postal Service website, USPS.com. All that information is there for you. And as a designer, you're probably not going to know all the mailing requirements, but you're going to want to make sure you're asking the right people the right questions before you print something that can't be mailed because it's an awkward size, or that you design something that is an awkward shape and it's going to cost your client an extra $1 per mailing, right? Because your shape isn't postal regulations, doesn't meet the criteria for the post office. Now, there's many different papers that you can choose to print from. I happen to love this website, which is why I pulled it up for you. And it tells you how they pick paper sizes. And we talked about the weight of a paper being 65-pound paperweight. What happens is paper comes in different size sheets, which are called parent sheets, and they take 500 parent sheets of a specific size paper and they put it on a scale. And what those 500 sheets weighs is how they come up with a paper weight. So if you take 500 sheets of cover stock paper, so if you look on the bottom right, basic sizes on cover, and it says cover is 20 by 26. If you take 20 by 26 cover weight paper and you put it on a scale, it's probably going to weigh 65 pounds. A heavier weight's going to weigh 80 pounds. A heavier weight paper is going to weigh 110 pounds. And probably there's a paper that's 130-pound cover weight where they've literally glued 2 sheets of paper together. And that's how they made the paper. So this is important for you to know so you understand what the foundation is for how you differentiate paper weights. Okay? It's also referred to as the basis weight of paper. And then here's more about paper weights. It tells you how they are broken down. Writing paper is like stationery, or what they use inside a book, which is also called book weight, which is also called text weight. And let's see what else we got on this little paper finishes. So you see the little texture on this website? That's emulating it's what's called a laid finish. It's uneven. It's like fine art paper. It's like watercolor paper. That's kind of a laid finish. Depending on the effect you want, for example, let's say you're making a catalog for an art gallery, you might decide that you want it to feel super tactile. Let's say it's watercolors. You might want to print it on a paper that has a laid finish because it has that tactile quality. Or you might decide you want it to be super slick, super clean, and just see the colors in the artwork, and you might decide to put it on a coated paper. I don't want to take a lot of time today showing you paper samples unless you're interested, but we can look at paper finishes again if you want. Is anybody interested in that? You are? Okay, then you know what? You're the only one. So I'm going to let you open the cabinet later and you can comb through all my cool stuff. And in the back, I have beautiful samples of books, which actually I'm going to pull some up just and pass them around while I'm talking since you guys get bored with me talking anyway, right? And the reason I want you to see that is because there's beautiful books here, and you all design your process books. You're going to want to look at different ways of binding your books. So there's beautiful finishes in paper here. I'm going to pass around some. Michael, have it come up here. You get first shot at all the cool stuff. Papers have ridges. Papers have different textures to them. Papers have, what's that? Yeah, you can look at it first, because you asked. And then you can pass them around. Here, hang on. These are all books that are promoted by, I know, but there's a lot of people. These are promotional materials promoted by paper companies to give people ideas on how to use their paper. I personally love this one. This is printed on like craft paper, like, okay, you're good. Like cardboard, chipboard. But it's also super cool, like when you run your hand on it, you're gonna feel that it's embossed and it's debossed. So embossed is bumped up, debossed is pressed down. Notice how they bound it? They use like grommets, like on your shoelaces, that your shoelaces go through. They also gate folded the cover. That's what you call a gatefold. I'll show you why it's a gatefold. It's a gatefold because it's like opening the doors of a gate. This is a double gatefold. And as a designer, it's your job to decide how things are folded, how to create little mock-ups and prototypes of it, to look at the different finishes and the color saturations on them, and different ways to bind things. There's one, let's see. So take a look at these and understand that when you're designing something, this is a stationery package. If you take a look at this one and you take anything out of it, just put them back in the sleeves, please.
I've never done it. I've been buying
But it's your job as a designer to get inspired and consider all the different ways that you can promote things and create stuff that's creative. There's also papers in here that are translucent, that are see-through. And knowing how to specify it is your job. And for some of you, you might not know how to get your hands on these papers. And the way to get these hands on on these papers is to make friends with the print shop that you do printing with. And tell them what you have in mind, and they'll help you get paper samples of what it is you're interested in. Okay? Any questions about paper? No?
The grommets,
Yeah.
features like that, would that be unique to printing shops individually?
Yeah. It's, you know, I mean, if you made it.
We never did one of those.
Yeah, so Sunny, who worked at a print shop, didn't do it. You'd have to go, most printers can bind things by saddle stitching, which looks like staples. Sunny's shop didn't do grommet bindery, so you'd send it out to a specific bindery house. Literally, that's all they do is bindery. It would be a specific, so they would, my print shop would print up all my materials. They would ship it off to a bindery house, which specializes in unique binderies. Then that bindery house would ship it back to my printer for finishing, let's say. There's some print shops that don't do foil stamping, don't do embossing, don't do die cutting. Remember what die cutting is?
Getting a die is not cheap.
Right.
Was it the one where you had the holes like punched out in the tree?
Right. Who's got a piece that has holes in it? Somebody has it somewhere. There's a piece that has holes in it. There, hold it up. So right back there, there's a folder that is die cut with the holes punched out of it.
You've seen the laser cuts.
Yeah, and laser cuts are pretty beautiful too. Okay, what else did I miss? Popular papers. Let's see what Popular Papers says. Here we go. So here's a link to Popular Papers. So you can start looking at different finishes of papers online. Like one of you has a paper that has ridges on it, right? One of you has papers that looks like corrugation, and it's the outside folder for a folder. Who's got that one? You do. Ben has it, right? And notice it's not printed on the surface. There's something glued to the surface, right? But nothing's printed on it because you can't run that corrugation through a normal printing press. So as a designer, it's all your decision to specify the paper and select the paper and so forth.
So when we have Bill's coffee shop, we got a new color machine. The first thing we did was we found out what would run through it.
Right.
We ran all the papers.
So did you hear Sonny when he worked? Do you work there now?
No.
When he worked at Bill's copy shop, he said, you know where my head is always in the morning. He said the first thing you had to do was test out what papers would be suitable through the
And
copier.
Which ones like the toner would hang on to.
Right.
Like linens,
Right.
man, it's so hard to get a toner to hang on to a linen.
Yeah.
It rubs right on.
Yes. Hard. He said it's hard for toner to stay on linen because it rubs right off the surface. Here's a link that I just clicked on, which was part of your lecture, which is about choosing paper. And what you're touching with your hands is about the surface paper texture, the whiteness of a paper. How many people have gone to like Office Depot and bought paper and it says brightness and it gives a number? Anybody paid attention to that? Monica did. Do you remember what the brightness number was of your paper?
I don't remember. I just remember there being like a bunch of different lights,
And you had no idea, right?
yeah.
Right. So the latest thing now is to make super bright white paper. And you know how they do that? They bleach it, but you know what else they do to it? They put a blue tint when they make the paper, in the paper.
Go bluing for laundry?
Yeah, like bluing for laundry to whiten it.
I
Right.
think they know what that is.
They whiten the paper by putting a little bit of blue in it. So there's a cool white and there's a warm white. So if you're looking at paper books, there'll be a natural white and there'll be a bright white. And then there'll be a solar white. And these are real subtle and most people won't know. So if you say to your printer, I want white paper, and they could give you a super cheap paper that's dingy and kind of gray and kind of it's just not bright. So if you're buying paper for printing, you're probably going to see brightness levels of 87 is a number, 93 is a number. They're probably toxic to the environment. You know, they've been bleached. Yeah, I know. Julia's going, oh, please. And then different papers have different costs. You know, the more finishing involved with a paper, the more expensive it is for your client. So that could impact a print cost enormously. Okay?
We probably did have this in our fire, which nobody ordered.
And probably nobody knew to order it. That's exactly right. Only crazy designers.
Because I remember seeing the grommet, the pliers that they use or whatever, the
Yeah.
little stamp thing.
Okay, so where I'm going to go with this, are there any questions about paper, mailings, mailing costs, mailing sizes?
There's standards, right? The postcards have to be 5 by 7.
There are standards. A postcard to mail at a postcard rate, which is cheaper than an envelope rate, can go cheaper than a first class mailing rate. Yes, it is cheaper. Okay.
And they made weights and stuff because they're running, that's how they separate them in the post office, right?
Say that again. Sizes and weights, yeah. Okay, so look at the home page in front of you. And I just want to call attention to this because all of you are going to need to know this. There's a link right here. Let me just see what this says. All right. All right, there's a link right here called Postal Indicia Samples. Postal Indicia Examples. And if you click on this, my link is gone. Let's see. There it is. So in front of you is an example of different postal indicias. And the assignment you're going to create next, you're going to have to place your own postal indicia on your postcard. So getting it accurate, you can pull it from any one of these sources to show me that you know how to create a postal indicia. Okay? So now let me introduce to you your next assignment, which is the postcard assignment, right here. And I do recommend, I think we talked about this the other day, that the postcard assignment, if I were you, I'd try and finish it by the weekend so I can have it graded. Email me when you're done. I'll grade it as fast as I can because you're going to want to know by Monday whether you have it accurate and have 100% on it or not. Because if you don't get 100% on this, then you probably won't be successful with your midterm. All right? So here's the postcard assignment. The goal of the postcard assignment, again, has objectives like the chicken and the skunk did. Specific sizes and margins are told to you right here. There's a postcard size given to you under specifications. You're going to build your document with only 2 spot colors like the chicken and the skunk. You're going to use vector images that I supplied to you, or you can use your own vector graphics if you want. And there's a couple ways that you might want to do that. So I'm going to walk through this and then I'll show you different examples. You can also create your own Illustrator files using LiveTrace, which there's a tutorial right here for you. And then you're going to have to make sure that when you design your postcard, you follow the postal regulations of what is called live area and what is called, and where your indicia is placed and where your mailing address is placed. And right here, if you click on this, this is an Acrobat file, this is a PDF file, which explains to you the areas you need to keep clear for the bars. How many of you sent a postcard when you've been out of town, or received a postcard and you've written down all the way to the bottom edge of the postcard only to receive a postcard and see there's a piece of white tape at the bottom with a barcode on it? Yeah, right? Okay, the post office uses those barcodes for mailing. So now when you design a postcard, you got to make sure that you keep your barcode area clear. The other thing you have to keep in mind is, if you look at this page right here, where this yellow box is and the pink box, the post office scans going across the page for the mailing address. So if you put a mailing address in the yellow area, your the post office might end up sending the postcard right back to you instead of the recipient you intended for. Does everybody follow that? Understand what I said? Okay, thank you, Asia. All right, and then your indicia goes in the upper right corner. So this is your template to remind you of how to keep safe zones. So let's design this. And then the goal of this is to use what you learned this morning, and you need to talk about it. So your design needs to include either transparency effects which overprint, or a shape which overprints, or a text which overprints, or artwork that overprints.
Use a gradient.
No, because that's not an overprint, unless a gradient overprints something. It has to overprint, and you can designate that through transparency or altering opacity,
So
or
put that on, like gradient on top of a pre-existing color.
that's fine if it overprints, if it doesn't knock it out, okay? You need to create a bleed to your postcard, and we need to create reverse type. Who doesn't know what reverse type is? Okay, reverse type is where the paper shows through.
So you fill it with paper.
You fill it with either paper or you fill it with white, which would act like paper. That's what reverse means. That's it, reverse type. So if you look at this postcard in front of you, right here, the type that's in white is really the white paper showing through, but the type is sitting on top of a purple box, and we had to make the type white. So you could either, like Sunny said, you fill it with paper, called paper color, or you fill it with white. And notice here that this area that's white right there that I'm circling around with the mouse at the bottom left of the screen, that's where you would address your postcard. In the upper right is where you put your indicia. And an indicia stamp doesn't have to be a specific size, but it's set away from the edge of the document, and it's probably the size of a postage stamp. So it's maybe like 7/8 of an inch tall by, let's say, 3/4 of an inch wide. And also notice that if you put a return address, every postcard needs a return address. I would put it up here. You could put it here, but don't put it where it's going to scan for the mailing code. You can have a color in the area where that barcode's going to go at the bottom of the page, but you have to be sure that there's no text that's going to interfere with that barcode. And then here, I want to call attention to this. This is what you're graded on. You get 5 points for making a PDF file that shows your bleed. So selecting all marks and bleeds and setting up your document with a bleed gets you 5 points. Separating each side of the card correctly with two spot colors on both sides of the card, you get 15 points each side. The fact that you set up your document in the correct size is 10 points. Where you put your return address and the placement of it correctly is 5 points. Where you put the indicia is 5 points. The fact that you have no typos is 5 points. And then notice, 7 points is you're going to make a page 3 for this document. Page 1 is the front, page 2 is the back, page 3 is where you're going to type this information right here. You can click and you can highlight it and you can type it. And this is what you're going to do. When you create this document, you need to tell me the correct trapping information, such as, did you use an overprint or a transparency? Where did you put it? What was it? Transparency. Tell me how you did it. Where's your bleed? What's reversing? What knocks out? Now, are you going to be able to tell me what knocks out because you created it, or is that going to be a default? Default, exactly. And then what file format did you save your image as? Did you save your Illustrator image as an EPS or an AI file? Each of those is worth 7 points. If you forget to put this in there, you miss 35 points. You could create a perfect postcard, and if you don't have a page 3, the most you could get is 65 points, which would be a D. All right, hang on, I'm going to keep answering. I'm going to finish and then you can ask. The other part, discussion of design elements. So we had that lecture on alignment, and we had that lecture on, let's see if it links up here. Video design. Here. The principles of design, right here, under lecture. Remember this lecture we had? Okay. Remember how we talked about the elements of design? Discuss with this the elements of design you use. So let me show you how we're going to do this assignment. I'm going to demo it for you and see if questions come up, okay? You guys with me?
Are we allowed to have the book or notes?
Of course. I mean, during the
Midterm?
midterm, well, you're going to do this assignment with the book and notes, whatever you want. And with the midterm, can you do the book or notes? Sure. You know why? Because when I'm a designer, I'm not sitting in a room without help. You just can't ask others for help. You got to use your own resources for it. Okay? All right, so I'm going to demonstrate this super quickly for you. Let's look at it right here. First off, Jeff, you might run into trouble again here, because if I click on this where it says vector images you can use, if that window's not opening for you, you're going to get frustrated, right? Okay, so I'm going to save these files and I'm going to show you that I'm supplying you with vector images you can use. You must, by the way, use at least 2 of the images supplied to you. So here's a file that's an Illustrator file. Don't double click on it, drag it to Illustrator or File Open Illustrator. And let me reset Essentials here for us. And notice that there's an Illustrator file in front of us which has artwork available. These are not the only graphics available for you to work with. If I go to the right, to the Layers panel in Illustrator, and I open it, I'll notice that there are a bunch of layers. And what makes a layer active is to highlight it. And what makes the layer viewable is that you can see this eye right here in the corner. If I want to see the first layer, I can turn off the layer 5 here. I can turn on the eye, and I can see a layer where there's shoes. I can click on that layer, turn off that layer, see the flowers. Okay? You all know how to work with layers now? All right. If any of these look exciting for you and you want to make a postcard out of them, you can. My recommendation for the postcard is make it something that you want, something that would be fun for you. So, Asia, what would be fun for you to make a postcard out of? Anything in the world. Cartoons? Okay. Do you have a particular one? I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well. Not exactly? You got to be specific for me.
Drinky Crow.
Drinking crow?
Drinky Crow.
Drinky crow?
Comes on really late.
Comes on when?
Really late,
Really late. While I'm sleeping?
pretty much.
Pretty
Mighty
much.
Mouse.
Mighty
Old
Mouse.
school.
Okay, Which is appropriate to pull up on the screen?
Either one, they're nice.
Okay.
Attention time.
All right. You know what? Mighty Mouse is a super simple one, right? Talk about old school. But I remember the shapes of Mighty Mouse, so let me just pull them up. Okay, so here's Mighty Mouse image. You guys might have fun with this.
Oh, look at that one, that's in black and white too.
Right. Let me try this. I would Google Mighty Mouse vector illustration and see if there's one I can find, first off. Because you don't have to draw your own here. There might be one in Shutterstock, there might not. But I don't really see one here. That's a vector file. It's all mouse. So let me go backwards here, and let me show you something really fun to use that you guys might like. There's two things to do. So here's Mighty Mouse, and I'm going to pick the simplest form for Mighty Mouse. And I'm going to pick this one right here. And I'm going to go to the Mighty Mouse image right here, and I'm going to steal it. I'm going to drag it off the browser and put it on my desktop. And now, if I'm in Illustrator and I don't want to use illustrations that are provided for me, is there anybody in here who wants to learn how to draw their own illustration? Yeah? Okay. Okay, with a pen tool. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go to Illustrator. I'm going to go to File, Open. This is in order to create my own illustration of Mighty Mouse. And I'm going to take the stolen JPEG image, which is not a vector file. It's like a photograph of him. And I opened him in Illustrator. I went to File, Open, here's my image. And this is what I'm going to do in Illustrator. He's on a layer, so if I go to my Layers panel, Window, Layers, he's on this layer. I'm just going to lock the layer so I don't mess around with it by mistake. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer in Illustrator, and I'm going to draw Mighty Mouse, and I'm going to draw him in 2 spot colors. Okay? So let me zoom in here with the zoom tool in Illustrator, and all this modeled look, this pixelated look, that's because it's a low resolution raster image. And what I'm going to do, who knows how to create a spot color in Illustrator? So, Brittany, do you know how to create a spot color in Illustrator? Do you know how to create a spot color in Illustrator? Okay, I'm sorry. Say that again?
Go to the color book
Okay, color book.
and then solid uncoded is what I'm
Solid what?
uncoded.
Okay, solid coded, solid uncoded. Where's solid uncoded? There it is. Okay, solid uncoded. Perfect. Perfect. So now my panel comes up. And so should we pick yellow and red? Which means his ears are not going to be black because black's the color, right? So here's my swatches. Let me drag that off so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to pick a dark red. Let's pick that one. And it loaded into my swatches. And I'm going to pick a bright yellow. I'll pick an orangey yellow right there. And now I'm going to close this so I don't mistakenly select more of those. So now that I have my swatch panel, I can do this. I can tear off my colors. I can activate that yellow. I can slide it and pick a tint and drag that tint here, right? Or I can go to my solid here in my swatch panel. My color guides are open. I will not pick my first one, which is going to duplicate the 100%. I'm going to pick everything after that, which is 80, 60, 40, 20% opacity. I mean tint, not opacity. And now I've got tints in my yellow. I'm going to do this super quick. I don't want the first one because that's going to duplicate my 100% swatch and I don't want to. So I'll pick these 4, 80, 60, 40, 20%. Drag them. And now the whole purpose of this was to show you how to create a vector graphic in Illustrator. And for those of you brave enough to try the pen tool, I suggest that what you do is you take the pen tool and create closed shapes. Every shape you make is closed shapes, not a line. Don't make a line. So let me do this super fast. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trace his face by using the pen tool. And when you use the pen tool, don't fill it with a color. I suggest just stroke it with a color so you can see what you're drawing. And I'm using the whole outline of Mickey's face, and I'm doing it really fast. Mickey.
Mighty.
Oh, Mighty. Oh, sorry. I've lost my cartoon character, haven't I? Okay. Does anybody remember what he used to say?
Here I go to save the
I knew I could count on you, Sonny, for that. Thank you.
I just watched the Andy Kaufman bit the other day.
Really? How old is
Old
this,
Saturday
John?
Night Live.
Is this like
Oh, this is
Mighty's
30s
from the
and 40s.
60s.
30s and 40s?
I think.
Oh, the year I was born.
Hey, we did them.
They're doing the math now, John. Do you think?
They did a numerous
How would I
series
be
in
if
the
I was?
80s.
How old would I be if I was born in the 30s? Okay, so here's his head. Now I'm going to go back to the pen tool, and I'm going to create his face, and you're going to get the idea. Everything is about creating shapes and layering them. So now I'm creating his face shape. All right, and I'm going to show you how to do this super fast. Okay, and make sure, I don't know if you can see this on your screen, but the pen tool has a little circle next to it, which means you're creating a closed shape. Now, what I will do, and you'll get the idea of this, I don't want to do this too long. I'm going to click on the part where the ears are for his head and make that dark orange. I'm going to click off of it. I'm going to click on the shape that has the face, and I'm going to make it a light peach. Do you see how you start to make the image show up and build it? All right. Yes, John?
Mighty Mouse is 1942.
Mighty Mouse is 1942. Okay, still before my time, you guys, okay? I did watch it when I was a little girl, though.
Who remembers his weakness?
Kryptonite.
Limburger cheese.
Limburger, really? Are you serious?
I think they introduced that as a later, like
Oh.
in the 80s series.
Oh, in the 80s. Okay, there you go. All right. So if I turn off the bottom layer, you can see I've now kind of got a primitive head for Mighty Mouse. Everybody get the idea? All right. So that would be the way that with patience you would build layer on top of layer in Illustrator to build Mighty Mouse by using tints.
That's what.
If I turn this off and I go to Window and I go to Separation Preview, and I select my artwork, which isn't showing up now because I think it's because it's a JPEG image. It doesn't know what to do with it. I view my separations. Now let me show you something else. This nobody who knows how to live trace in here besides Per. Per knows, right? Okay. Oh, you guys know too? All right. Let me show you about live trace. Live trace can be a nightmare, but I will show it to you. So let me open my layer panel up again. Let me turn on my Mighty Mouse layer. Let me turn off this top one, and let me go to the Mighty Mouse layer. So here I have this graphic of Mighty Mouse. And one of the things you can do in Illustrator is you can take a raster image, which is this, and you can go up to something called Live Trace, where you go to Object, Live Trace, and Tracing Options. And if I want to view this in just one color, black and white, black or white, I can click Preview, and this is what Live Trace does to my Mighty Mouse image. Yeah,
Where's that
easy.
big one?
Easier than me drawing it, right? All right, it's not all as wonderful as you think, because I'll explain that in a minute. And if I trace this right now, it turned my Mighty Mouse image into a vector image, but I can't do anything with it until I go to Object and I expand it. And now it's a bunch of vector points. Now, if I view this image in outline mode, you can see Mighty Mouse as a vector image. John, you had something to say?
Oftentimes you can take these images into Photoshop and simplify the process by.
Right. You can simplify the image if you want. So let me go back to view this in preview mode. So the other thing I have to do with this image is it's all grouped together when I click on it. And most vector images that are clip art are always grouped together like the chicken was. So you have to ungroup them. And let's look at how he's built. So, bless you, he's still grouped together. So I have to ungroup him again. And he's probably still grouped together. So let's say what's going on here. All right, so that's still grouped.
This is it's all connected.
It's all connected. It's a little crazy. What it did is it created something called compound paths also, which is why I think live trace can be a nightmare for you. I just want to warn you. But so we can ungroup this again, and it won't let us ungroup it anymore. Now what we have to do is it created a compound path for it, I think. Because if I draw a circle and I send my circle to the back in Illustrator, I can see I'm going to run out of time here. I want to do this fast. See, it has all this white stuff. It's not see-through. So if I start to get rid of the background box, I can get outlines. But if I get rid of this white of his t-shirt, you're going to see black behind it. Oh, you're not. This is good. So what I could do instead is I could take my t-shirt and I can tint it a color. I could also click on everything that's black right now, and I could say select same object fill color. Remember how you did that with the chicken? And I can turn everything that is solid black right now into, let's say, light yellow or into a dark orange. Let me delete that guy. And now we've got Mighty Mouse's 2-spot colors. Kind of fun, right? Okay, so let me just save this. Let me delete the bottom layer. Oh, I don't even need to. I do, and I don't, and I'm going to delete the top layer because that's my illustration. So let me save this. I'm going to run out of time with your postcard assignment. So let me do this real quickly. Let me save it as an Illustrator file. And let me save it on the desktop. And let me make a postcard for you using the specifications. Yeah, John?
You could also send this to Image Magic and you get a great vector graphic back.
Right, if you don't have Illustrator at home.
So you have to pay for it.
Okay. All right, so our postcard is 6 inches by 4 1/4, and it has a margin of 0.125. Let me reset this. So I make a new document in InDesign. What's my size? 6 inches wide, 4 1/4 high, bleed of 1/8 of an inch all around. Turn off facing pages, and I'm making a 3-page document. What goes on page 3? Okay, good. I've got 2 people listening, that's good. All right, and if I right now go to File, Place, and I place the Mighty Mouse image, the Illustrator file I saved, and I place my graphic, and I view this as output separation preview, we can see if I built my 2-spot colors accurately. If I turn off one and I turn off the other, Mighty Mouse disappears. Now let me just be clear about something. You need 2 illustration images on this, one on each side of the page. The other thing I want to be clear about is, so right now I can create a bleed, and I can create, let me turn that off. I can open my window swatches. I can put a background yellow behind it. I can go to Object Arrange and Send to Back. You know, you can make this an invitation, you can make this an Easter card, you can make this anything you want. Oh, I took that out of the graphic, sorry. I just screwed that up.
Question, it could be any image that we want.
You can make a postcard for absolutely anything you want, any image. You have to have 2 vector graphics in there, 2 different vector illustrations, and your 2 vector illustrations, you have to apply transparency or opacity. You need to read all the requirements for the assignment, okay? The other thing is I need text. I need my text to be in reverse. Isn't that what he says? Am I right? And your text has to be thoughtful. You have to design this with a thoughtful layout, not just this. If your type looks like that, trust me, I will be extremely disappointed. So consider your fonts that you want to use, consider the way you're going to build your files, consider your leading. Yes?
So when we create this, should we create it with 3 pages so that they're the exact same, that 3rd page can have those questions you wanted us to answer?
That's exactly correct.
And then the 3rd page, it's just a text box, it doesn't have to be like really fancy.
The 3rd page is just the information.
So like the text box we paste.
The 3rd page, what I would do, if I were doing the 3rd page myself, I would highlight all of this. Here's where you're not going to fail at this. I would highlight all of this. This is to make you successful. I would copy it all. I would go to my page panel. I'd go to page 3. I'd go to the text tool. I'd click and drag. I'd paste all the text, Command V, and I would say, did I do that? I'd read it. Yes, I did that. Okay, cool. Did I check my separations? I would go back to my page. I would check my separations. I'd say yes. What I find is students don't double check their work. Yes, John?
It would be good for you to go back to Skunk and Chicken and do the same exact thing.
Okay.
Because Skunk and Chickens are coming in wrong.
There you go. You need to check your work. Then I would look at the postcard size. Did I do it? And then I would check each of these things against the examples. Then the other thing is, I only have 10 minutes, so I'm very aware of trying to get done with all this. And then after I've checked everything, spell checked and so forth, then I would answer these questions and I would type my information next to each question.
Where will we put the answers? In another page of the file?
Page 3.
Okay.
Page 3 of the file. Okay? And then, okay, so make sure you've done all that. Don't forget the design elements. That's even 5 points. But what I want to show you back in this side of the document, this is your mailing side. So for example, let's say I come back to page 1 and I decide here's my Mighty Mouse and have text. You could put a poem, you could write a letter, you could do whatever you want. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to this page, the mailing address page. I'm going to go to Edit, Paste in Place, right there. I'm going to take my Mighty Mouse image. I'm going to make it super small because I want it smaller. But remember, you need 2 different graphics, not 2 Mighty Mouse, but 2 different graphics. And then I'm going to put my return address up here. So your return address consists of your name, your street and street number, your city, your state, your zip, and maybe your country, depending on where you're mailing to and from. And maybe it's 10-point type on 12-point leading. And it's probably either in the upper corner here. You know, let me flop Mighty Mouse so he looks into my page. So he's flopped now. There, he looks better that way, right? Here's my name, city, state, zip. Then there's information, like you could make this an ad for your new store. You could make this, Robert, an ad for your photography business. And you can fill this in with text of something that's relevant for your photography business. And understand my other side of my page for addressing cannot be orange. So what I might decide is that this is just a little color bar and it's a 10% tint of my spot color. And my text here is, it cannot be black, remember that. It can't be black, but maybe it's that dark orange color. And my return address here is dark orange. Now let's talk about the indicia. The indicia goes in the upper right corner about 1/8 of an inch from the right and 1/8 of an inch down from the top. The indicia does not have to have a line around it, but it usually reads like this. It's usually about, an indicia box is usually about 3/4 of an inch wide and maybe about 1 inch high. And it could be horizontal. And it usually says United States postage And then the next line it says paid. And the next line it'll say the city. And then it'll have a comma and it'll say the state. And the next line it'll say permit number. And then it's usually centered. All the text is centered in the box. And yes, you can stroke the box. And as you know, you're not going to have your text touch the stroke. So you go to object, you go to text frame options, and you'd center it vertically in the box. This is applying all the stuff you've already learned, right, with all of your assignments. This is you using it practically. And you don't need here to put the address. I don't care who you're mailing it to. You do need to keep that area safe. And yeah, if you want, or none, or nothing. And what I was looking for was this. And what you have to remember is here, again, click on this and read it. And it says, keep that clear. It doesn't mean your stamp is a quarter, 1 1/4 by 1 1/4. You can put information here. This doesn't have to be blank. You could put art and information here. Just don't put an address in the yellow area because it was scanning correctly. And then make sure that there's no text or no dark colors below 5/8 of an inch from the bottom. So therefore, you might just even want to drag a guide that says, okay, don't come close anywhere below that with text. Yeah, John?
Is there a link in the instructions to the indicia requirements of the post office?
UnitedStatesPostalService.com. There's one in the home page of the class. And you know what? There might be here too.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Also, just, here's a video on color separations. Here's how to edit the original. We did that in the Chicken and the Skunk. Remember how to do that and automatically update your links. Here's a website to download free vector art, which I happen to love this site. They would have lots of fun stuff you could download. It's, it's all vector, yes. It's free. Don't click on anything that says featured links because somebody's going to try and sell you something. Stay in the Vecteezy site. You can search keywords like cartoon. Yeah, you like that? And here's some Vecteezy cartoons that are free. Like you could download this guy. That's pretty cute. That's pretty cute, right? And you can work with those characters. So you could take 2 of those characters and create a graphic with it. Here's your opportunity to have a good time with your project. So let me know. Just remember here, let's go to preview. Remember how your graphic should look. Remember you're staying in only 2 colors. Yeah, Z, do you have a question?
Does your 2 images have to be on this page too?
You should have at least 2 vector graphics that you have altered. You could, like if I had Mighty Mouse on both pages, I just need one more image somewhere.
Okay.
So like on this page, Mighty Mouse might be flying to a planet to go save the day, right there. And now, if you don't know how to answer what goes on page 3, for example, the questions are what bleeds. So you would say the orange color bleeds on page 1. Mighty Mouse bleeds off the bottom right corner on page 1. The text that reads on page 1, Mighty Mouse saves the day, is reverse text. Nothing overprints so far. So let's say here's my planet for Mighty Mouse to go save the day. Maybe it's a moon, and maybe it's filled with this orange color. And maybe I take this orange color and I go to my window, my effects panel, the orange is active, and I multiply it, right? And you say, what overprints? You say, the big circle in the upper left corner that's supposed to be the planet Mighty Mouse is flying to, overprints, right? So know how to answer it. Now, who can tell me what knocks out on this page? This is where everybody kind of falls flat.
Under the shirt.
So what knocks out on this page? Let's look. If you don't know, you go to Window, Output, Separation, Preview. Now, when I turn off the orange, watch what happens, the dark red orange. What knocked out here? So, Michael, what knocked out?
The outline very.
Yeah, his head. His dark red head knocks out of the background, right?
Yep.
So that's what you say. That's how you phrase it. Does everybody get that? Jeff, you with me on that? Okay.
Which is the other color?
What's that?
To the bottom color.
Do the bottom color. See what happens.
Thought it wasn't wrong saying his shirt would be knocked out.
Correct. You were not wrong. No, the shirt is not knocking out. The shirt is a tint of this orange.
Oh,
It does not knock out. Just because that went white, that's orange and that's orange. It didn't knock out at anything. If it's a
because
tint,
there's no color on top of
Is the-
correct.
The white of his body knocking out.
No,
it.
that's
No,
just
she's
reverse.
explaining, no.
So if I put Mighty Mouse here, and I made the Mighty Mouse color swatches,
Then
there we go.
underneath was the mighty
And I
knockout.
made the Mighty Mouse orange, this dark, I'm sorry, I keep calling it orange, let me call it red, right? And I made it red. Now look what happens. So if I click off of it, if I turn off the red, it's knocking out from the shirt. See that? Okay, does everybody get knockout stuff? All right. So remember where the indicia goes, remember where your return address goes. Make your layout an interesting graphic style. And do not forget to answer all these questions because they total 35, they total 40 points.
Just do a Monday.
If you forget, well, I suggest you do it and make sure it's due by Monday because all of you chose, we had a choice to finish the midterm before the week we go on vacation or not. So Wednesday's the day that is vacation. It's the last day of class, and then we're on vacation for a week. So we're getting the midterm done early. Is that still what everybody wants to do? Yeah, unload it, right? Okay. All right, so let me free up your screens.